Here we go. All right. Well, let's go
Hello.
ahead and get started. Hello.
Should I
Well,
kick us off or?
kick us off. I'll go ahead and introduce you, and then just a short introduction. I'm Marty Exline. I'm the Training and Technical Assistance Lead with the AT3 Center, which is the training and technical assistance provider for all of the Assisted Technology Act programs under ATAP. And we are thrilled to have our webinar today, What's New in Google Accessibility. Just by way of introduction, at Google, of course, their mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible for everyone, including people with disabilities. And this session features members from various teams sharing the stage to highlight their latest accessibility updates. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Mariah.
Okay, great. And I'm actually going to double check and see if Alexander is on the call.
He
And if he
is.
is,
I see him. Jamie, you just need to make him a presenter.
All right, let me figure out how to do that real fast. Is he under attendees? Yep, there he is. Done.
and maybe while Alexander is starting to sort that out, I can maybe take the next slide. So my
I
name's Mariah Moon,
I'm
and
actually here, Mariah. I'm in.
oh, good.
I
Okay,
managed to
take
get
it
in.
away,
Thank you,
Alexander.
Jamie, and sorry everyone for the for the technical hiccups here. But I really appreciate being here. So sorry for the technical hiccups and for the delay. Um, my name is Alexander, and I'm joined here today with some of my excellent colleagues, Mariah Moon, who's the Chromebook and Android product manager, Daniel, who's a software engineer on Android, and Ali, who's a product manager on Android as well. Um, can you skip to the next slide? Perfect. So a key part of all of the innovations and the development of the innovations that you'll see here today are really, really anchored in co-creation across different disability groups. We try hard to embrace the nothing about us without us motto. And to us, that means that involving community really, really early on to find solutions. And we recognize that lived experiments are really, really paramount. Um, at Google, it's also a core part of how we work is to really engage with communities through conferences, through collaborations with different disability organizations, and co-design activities from UX. And this is for more than just it's focused really on building with people rather than just testing on them. We also engage the Googlers with disabilities through our Disability Alliance, which is our internal employee resource group. And if you can jump to the next slide. So today we're going to be covering a lot of different interesting stuff. We're going to be starting off talking about Gemini, which is Google's AI. Then we're going to go into Android, the Chrome browser, Android XR, YouTube, Google Maps, Workspace, and then we'll finish off with some resources that will make it easier for everyone to stay up to date on all of the things that are happening across the company. And if you can hop to the next slide. And let's just take the next one. So Gemini and DeepMind, that is basically, if you're not familiar, that is Google's AI initiatives. And the first update we have is for Gemini Live. This is specifically on the Gemini app. And if you're not familiar with that, you can just go on either the Play Store or the App Store and download the Gemini app. And you can explore all different ways of interacting with it. We recently rolled out something called Gemini Live, which is a more natural way of just speaking to Gemini instead of typing. So simply click into the Gemini Live feature of the app, and you can start speaking, or you can also show Gemini what you're working on. And people often go live to organize thoughts or ask questions. You can even share your camera. You can also share your screen and get a spoken response. And we got some really interesting and positive feedback from the disability community around sharing the camera for better understanding the physical world around us. You can also share your screen for assistance. So, for example, if you run into an inaccessible website, you can just open the conversational AI, and the AI can jump in and help explain what's on the screen. Gemini is available to mobile users in more than 150 countries across 45 different languages. Another update for Gemini Live that we recently rolled out is for captions. So that is one of the areas that we've been working at pretty hard, and we finally figured out how to do captions best. So now you can get captions on both what Gemini is saying, but also what you are saying to make sure that you are understood. Just click the little caption button and everything will be captioned. And if you hop to the next slide. Next, we have some helpful tips on how to make the most of Gemini on the web and on mobile. So, and this is especially around sharing additional context and preferences. So if you're anything like me and you find long blocks of text responses difficult, I think we've all been there. You ask Gemini or one of the other AI apps that you might be using about like a very simple question, and you end up with a 10-paragraph answer that can be a little overwhelming if you ask me. So now we can go in and you can set permanent preferences you go in under settings and under your instructions for Gemini. And this is something that can help save a lot of time and a lot of frustration with over engineering your prompts. You can, for example, ask to always prioritize scannability and always give me bulleted list. Make sure to have distinct headings, or like leaving plenty of breathing rooms in the responses that you get. You can also share information about your disability if you want, and that will again help you get more tailored answers to your questions. Again, under your instructions for Gemini, that is where you can set these permanent preferences, and that is something that can be very helpful. And with that, I will hand it over to Daniel to talk us through some of the Android updates.
Great. Thank you, Alexander. Hopefully folks can hear me all right. I'm joining today on my Android phone. So Android is Google's mobile operating system. So we're going to be sharing a number of updates across a number of different categories of disabilities, and sharing both a little bit of backstory on some of these in addition to some of the new features that we'd love for you to share with everyone. So go to the next slide, please. So before I jump into an accessibility feature, I wanted to actually share this update that we have that's really aimed at folks like this audience, which is something to help you share accessibility features with the community in your life, whether that's loved ones or patients that you support or people at a school that you support. And so this feature, Accessibility Deep Links, at face value, it just looks like a web URL. So it's, for example, if you see in the animated image on the right, there's someone sending a text message that says g.co/android/font, and they're sending that to their dad. So this was a text message I recorded sending to my dad. And the new feature here with Accessibility Deep Links is that if you tap on that link, it will now actually open up the relevant page inside Android settings. So the animated image shows tapping on that link, and it immediately opens the settings page for the font size, display size, bold text, outline text options in Android. So We really hope this is a way to reduce friction when it comes to educating and sharing accessibility features. So now, instead of needing to guide someone to open up their settings app and find the right page, navigate a few levels deep to find the right setting, for a large number of these settings, we now have an immediate link that will jump someone right to that correct page, so you can share with them and they can get started using that feature that much faster. So the QR code in the bottom left of this slide will bring you to a Help Center article about all of these deep links. But if you notice any of the QR codes on some of the following slides, those are examples that actually do jump you immediately to the feature that that slide is talking about. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to be going into some vision features to start. All right, next slide. So the first update we want to share is for Android screen reader called TalkBack. So last year, we brought Gemini capabilities to TalkBack to be able to get AI-generated descriptions for images, even when there's no alt text. So we got a lot of feedback that this was extremely useful, not just for places where there's no alt text, but also when users wanted even more detailed information. Things like, is that dress strapless? Does it have polka dots, for example? And so now this most recent update is that you can follow up and ask detailed questions. So you see in the animated image on this slide, someone uses the TalkBack menu to say, describe this image or describe this whole screen. And if you choose describe the whole screen, it gives a high-level overview of the entire screen. And then the user can follow up either with typing or with voice to ask follow-up questions. Again, like I said, you could ask specific questions about a single dress on the page. So in the example, they're asking which dress would be good for a summer cocktail party. So we hope that this makes a quick understanding of the screen a lot easier rather than needing to navigate manually through every single element. Users can now get a very brief, high-level overview and then dive into the details that they care about. Next slide, please. Right. Moving now to a feature to support users with contrast sensitivity needs. So we added a feature in Android called outline text. So you might have seen a feature before in Android called high contrast text. So this is our next level update to high contrast text, which we've decided to rename to be more clear about what it's doing visually on the screen. So as you can see in the animated image in the middle and the screenshot on the right, the outline text feature is aimed at maximizing text contrast across all of the Android apps that you experience. So, the way that we do this is by adding either a black or white background behind all text. And this depends on the original color of the text. So, for example, the image in the middle, most of the text there is white, so we're adding a dark background behind that text. And you can see that it really helps boost the contrast and make some of this text that was previously light text on a light background, makes it much more legible. And the other great update that we included with this was preserving some of the text color. So we saw that color was very useful in a lot of apps to understand meaning in text. So for example, you might have a mapping app that would have green for low traffic and red for high traffic. And now with outline text, so this is different from the old version, but with the new outline text, you should be able to still see a bit of the color in that original text. It will just be a more high contrast version. So text, for example, that used to be dark red on a black background will now be light red on a black background. So you still get a bit of that info, but it's still as high contrast as we can make it. Next slide, please. All right, next update that I'm super excited about. And just a quick reminder, all those QR codes, again, if you have an Android phone and you scan them, you should be brought to the settings page for it. If you have an iPhone or any other device, you'll be brought to a Help Center article about that feature. So for this update, so Android has had a feature called Dark Theme for many years. This is our system-wide offering that tells both the main parts of the operating system, like the main launchers, the notifications, for example, to be dark theme. but it also tells all of the apps that you use to be dark theme. And we received a lot of feedback that dark themes was not working as folks were intended because a lot of apps did not go in and provide their own official dark theme. So for example, you would choose to have dark theme, but then you would launch an app like Airbnb or Starbucks, and those apps would still appear to have a light background. And this was really jarring and in some cases physically painful for some of our users with photosensitivity. So we just released a feature that updates dark theme. We call it expanded dark theme. And expanded dark theme, it takes for all of the apps that already support dark theme, we leave them as is. But now all of the apps that didn't have an official dark theme, Android will try to automatically generate a dark theme for them. And the really nice thing about this is that it will preserve the images that are in the app. So any of the real world pictures, for example, you have a picture of an Airbnb or a picture of a menu item, they should stay looking normal. It's just the text and the backgrounds that get inverted. So if you go to the next slide, we have some screenshots to show what that looks like. So here's a few example apps where we've gotten a lot of positive feedback of users being very happy that they now get to use, for example, DoorDash in dark theme. So we're, again, really hoping that this gives just a much more consistent experience for anyone using dark theme, but especially useful for folks with photosensitivity. Next slide, please. Jumping now to magnification. So magnification has existed for a while in Android. This is our feature to help you zoom into the screen to enlarge anything that you see on your device. And so this update, if you can play the video, hopefully it will play. The update allows anyone with a mouse or keyboard connected to their Android device to now use their mouse and keyboard to control magnification. So the video is briefly showing some of the example cursor following options with magnification. So these are the different ways that magnification will follow your mouse as you move a mouse around. And we offer 3 options. These are pretty standard that you'll find in other operating systems, but these 3 options allow users to balance, for example, how much motion sickness they get. They might want to use one of the options that is less prone to triggering motion sickness versus another option that is better if you're wanting to maintain context of where the mouse is on the screen as a whole. We see this as super important as we see more and more people using Android devices for productivity, for example, using a foldable with a large screen or using a tablet and connecting a mouse and keyboard there. Next slide, please. Right. So next update is an app that we offer on Pixel devices called Magnifier. So very, very similar name, but this one is a separate app that you can download from the Play Store on Google Pixel devices. And this one is for zooming into and understanding the real world. So while magnification was focused on zooming into and enlarging the apps on your phone, this is using the camera. And so this offers a collection of features that make it much nicer to use than just the standard camera app on the phone. So we offer dedicated zoom and flashlight buttons. We offer different color, contrast, brightness adjustment control. So for example, if you're someone who sees text best when it's yellow on a black background, for example, we have a color filter that can adjust the camera feed to look yellow on black. And the new update here is something we call live search. So the animated image here shows someone opening a text box at the bottom of the app and either typing or speaking their phrase that they want to search. I believe they search oolong. Is that? Yes, they're searching oolong because they're trying to find their favorite tea item on the menu. So this is great if you know that you're trying to find a specific text item, like searching through a menu for oolong tea, and you want to see, for example, do they have it or what does it cost? This will highlight on the screen with a visual yellow border around, and that will help the user hone in, zoom in on that specific item in the camera. Next slide, please. Right. Continuing with the theme of camera features, we have a feature built into the camera, again on Google Pixel phones, called Guided Frame. So Guided Frame is aimed at helping anyone with visual impairments take photos, and it offers two different styles. So we know that, of course, not everyone with a visual impairment is using TalkBack. For example, they might be a magnification user, they might be using outline text. So if you're not using TalkBack, you can still use Guided Frame, and it will provide spoken feedback. It will provide haptics, high contrast visuals to help you take a better photo. If you are using TalkBack, it will work alongside TalkBack to help a blind user, for example, frame a photo. And the amazing thing about it is it will quickly give you descriptions of what's in the viewfinder. So, for example, if you're trying to take a photo of your friend standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, it will tell you, maybe it'll see two people standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, and you know that you have three friends with you. So it'll tell you, oh, maybe aim a little bit to the left or aim a little bit up. And so it's very, very nice for assisting with just general photo taking. Again, works both with TalkBack on or TalkBack off. Next video, please. Next slide. Thank you. All right. So I think this. Okay, yeah, so this was going to be a video. That's fine. It's what I was describing. So the video just describes someone using this guided frame feature where they're taking a picture of a bush, and the audio feedback is describing that there's a window with a bush and that there's a smaller bush. So all of this is powered by all of the amazing AI features that I've already mentioned a bit and that you'll keep hearing more about. So it lets you get very detailed descriptions, much more than just one person in the frame, for example. All right. The next section for motor impairments will be handled by my colleague, Ali. So passing to Ali.
Hey everyone, I'm Ali, and I'm a product manager on Android working on motor and dexterity impairments. You can go to the next slide. So first up, I'm going to talk about voice access. And voice access is Android's main feature that's used to control your entire phone just with your voice instead of touch. And so anything that you can do with your hands on your phone, you can instead do vocally. So you can say things like swipe right, swipe left, go home, zoom in. And then you can say, this is showing, saying tap translate, asking the user to tap the translate app to open that. And then, that has nice labels there on the home screen, so you know what to call something. If you don't know what a button is called or how to refer to what part of the screen, we have features where you can show labels and numbers as an overlay on top of the content, or even a grid navigation system. So you can really control pixel by pixel where all of these touches and swipes are happening on the phone. You can go to the next slide. And so one of the great improvements we made this year is actually turning voice access on and doing this hands-free. So previously, a lot of our Android apps, you have to actually tap them on the screen to start them, and voice access isn't listening until it's turned on. But this is obviously not a great solution for users with mobility impairments, especially if they have no ability to touch the screen with their hands. And so we had a collaboration with the Gemini team this year, and you can say, hey, Google, start voice access, which is probably going to do that on all my phones right now. Let me silence it. And that's a great option to then turn on voice access without having to touch the screen. Yeah, okay. My phone did just turn on voice access when I said those magic words, so I'm going to disable that now. But it's really a really great solution for our users, and great to have that AI collaboration as well. Next slide. So moving on from mobility, next I'm going to talk about captioning and some other areas in the hard of hearing space. Next slide. Yeah, so first I'm going to talk about live captions. So live captions is exactly what it sounds like. It's captions, but it's a platform level. So it follows, this caption box follows you across every surface on your Android phone. Most of you are probably used to doing something like turning on captions in YouTube, turning it on in Instagram videos, but that's on a per app basis, and it's up to that app to actually caption that content. And often with something like YouTube, sometimes those captions are, they're generated and exist with the video. What live caption allows you to do is have a consistent captioning experience across any audio surface on your screen. And then you also have further customizations. You can do things like change the font and the color contrast and the size to really get it to the reading level that you're looking for, and to then have this captioning contrast across your entire experience. And then furthermore, you can actually caption your calls as well, which is awesome if you're trying to just have additional feedback there. And so we find captions are actually, it's an awesome feature that people in the deaf and hard of hearing community use, but also just many general users or people with cognitive disabilities use this as well. I myself always prefer to read over listen to things, and so it's really great to have this experience to visually see the words that are happening on the screen. Next slide. A super fun improvement that we've made within captioning is we added this feature called expressive captions. So in this demo video, we're showing someone playing tennis, and it's go Kenny, and then you get kind of stage directions of the cheering and clapping subtext happening, and then nice shot, let's go is all capital. And so what we're enabling here is actually understanding the audio that's coming in and adding those additional information like the cheering and clapping, and then giving that expressive feel with these all caps that's really showing the emotion and the excitement from that user's voice. When before this, it would have just been straight written out text, and you're losing some of that excitement and emotional vibe in the message. And then you can go to the next slide. This is a great quote about expressive captions. So the meaning can change dramatically based on emotion, and this came out of our internal research in the feature. And so this is really a great area of progress for our deaf and hard of hearing users, where before they really weren't getting all the information from live captions. They got the words, but they didn't always get the feelings. And so it's really exciting to see live captions support this, and we're going to continue to add this to more languages over time. Next slide. Next, I'll go into Live Transcribe. So while Live Caption is thinking about the audio on your device and giving you captions for that, Live Transcribe is for basically transcribing external audio. So if you think about it, you could talk to the phone yourself. You might sit down and have a conversation, and this is then taking audio from the surrounding environment, taking speech, and then transcribing it into written words out in this app. And this supports multiple different languages, both online and offline, and is really helpful for these first face-to-face conversations. And then if you go to the next slide, another feature that we added to Live Transcribe is support for Google Translate. And so once you have a transcription, it will persist on your screen. You can then tap and drag to select any range of text, and then you can directly within the transcription click on Google Translate, and it will detect which language it is, and you can change what language you want to transcribe to. And so rather than translating on the fly while you're talking to someone, you capture the whole transcription in text, and then you can translate that after the fact and read it and digest it, which can still work for these face-to-face conversations as well. And then next slide. And this is an area where we're actually kind of combining Live Transcribe, a deaf and hard of hearing feature, with low vision. And so we, once the transcription is recorded, the next thing is it's really a reading experience. And we want that reading experience to meet everyone's needs. So we have things like pinch to zoom if you want to zoom in on the text. And you're also able to export those transcriptions and save them, to your phone or move them elsewhere if you want to just take that text file and put it in whatever reading format you want to then digest that. Okay, and then next slide. And so from here, we're going to move to this amplify space, again, in the deaf of hard of hearing area, but focusing on amplifying and increasing all sounds, not just speech and words. Next slide. So first we'll talk about fast pair for hearing devices. So we've had a lot of advancements with LE audio enabled hearing devices to allow for a more seamless Bluetooth pairing process with your Android device. And so we made a lot of improvements to automatically detect your hearing devices, bring it towards your phone, and then this will bring up this fast pair experiences. Android now automatically knows what model of hearing devices you have, and then you're guided with a step-by-step instruction on how to do this instead of just struggling through, third-party hearing aid apps or manual Bluetooth connectivity. This is like a place we've got a lot of feedback from our users that it saves them a lot of time and frustration. Next slide. Additional controls that we've added, and this is pretty exciting. We have the ability to actually control the hearing aid settings directly in Android settings rather than, again, having to manage these third-party apps depending on who provides your hearing aids. And within that, you can actually do left and right ear customizations, which can be great for our users that have differing hearing between their different ears, or if you want to have different presets between them to be able to tailor that hearing experience. And this just like increases your ease of use and reduces the latency, having everything just baked directly into Android settings rather than having to manage these different settings areas. And next slide. And then this last one is really great. We have this feature for audio sharing. And so you can continue to use your hearing devices, your phone, but then if you want to, you're listening to a YouTube video on your phone and you're using your hearing devices, but you want a friend to be able to hear that, you can share the QR code and then they can actually join that audio stream from their device. And then we had this happen at scale. So this is this Auracast broadcast. We've had a great moment with the Sydney Opera House, actually had an event where the opera itself was broadcasting an Auracast stream, and then users in the audience that had hearing aids could join that from their hearing aids. So instead of having to just amplify the sound in the opera house, they're actually able to connect their hearing device directly to the audio stream happening from the facility. That just gave such a world-class experience for these users, and it'll be really exciting to get that type of infrastructure at scale so more people can just connect their hearing devices directly to the audio where it's coming from. And so that is all we have in the audio space. So after this, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Mariah, who's going to talk about Chrome and Chromebooks.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Hello, everyone. My name is Mariah Moon, and I am an accessibility product manager for Chrome, Chromebook, Android. And there's actually one last feature I wanted to share on Android that I didn't have time to put a slide in, which is we added a new setting to control the text cursor blink rate. So under color and motion, there's now a new setting that allows you to change the text cursor blink rate or lets you turn it off. So for anyone with photosensitive seizure triggers or focus disorders like ADHD, if you find the text blinking, that cursor that blinks when you type, to be distracting or annoying or painful, all of those things can be now hopefully mitigated with this setting. So that is rolling out. It just started rolling out in June, so brand new feature. All right, so I'm going to jump into Chrome and Chromebook. So this first feature that I want to talk about is Chrome Reading Mode. So this is a feature that's built into the browser, into the Chrome browser, and it allows you to modify text that you are reading to be easier to read. So if we go to the next slide, there should be a video. Let's see if we can play that. Okay, excellent. So in the Chrome browser, you can turn on reading mode. And so what's happening now is there's a side panel that opens, and we have simplified the view of the text. You can also change the font. You can change the colors of the text. And when it was highlighting there, there's actually a readout that's happening. So you can select the text and you can actually have it be read out as well. It will highlight the words that it's reading. So we have been investing in this pretty heavily. You can use this in any of the Chrome browsers, so on Windows, on Chromebook, on Mac. And one other feature that I want to call out specifically for this reading mode is there's now an immersive reading mode. So what you just saw is the side panel that opens. There's an option now that allows you to have the full experience be immersive, and it's not just a side panel, but it takes up the whole screen. So you won't have that content on the left. So both are available. And we continue to invest in this. I guess one other call out that I'll just say for Chrome Reading Mode, this was really designed, and feel free to click play again on the video while I'm talking about it. This was really designed for students with dyslexia or people with dyslexia. The reading at the same time, the readout, the highlighting helps people make the cognitive connection for the readout. But what we find is that for people with low vision, this can also be really helpful to have that readout and being able to follow along and get the content read aloud. So this continues to be a great feature, again, for people with dyslexia or low vision, or really anyone who's an emerging reader, a new reader. So moving ahead, I'm going to talk about a Chromebook specific feature that we've been investing in, which is called Face Control. So what Face Control does is it uses the built-in camera on your Chromebook, and it tracks your facial movements and gestures. So it is designed for people with mobility differences to provide hand-free navigation. So you can basically move your head around for the mouse pointer and then do a facial gesture to click. So let's move forward one slide and see if we can play the video. Okay, and the video's not working. Okay, that's all right. I can talk to it. So we partnered with a school in Canada for a student who has cerebral palsy, and he has been able to use Face Control to be more independent. He can now browse the web, he can do his homework using Face Control. So what he does is he can move his head around to move the mouse pointer, and then he is able to click on things or activate things by opening his mouth. This video is public, and we did a big post about it for Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So maybe after this talk, if you want to dig a little bit more into this, if you look up Face Control on Chromebook, his name is Liam. There's a nice big blog post about it with the video. So for anyone, again, who has mobility differences, this was designed for people with cerebral palsy or more extreme mobility differences, but can be great if you just want a hands-free experience. I actually just got back from Kenya, where there's a big accessibility conference that happens there, and we were evaluating to see if Face Control was going to work for a student that's out kind of in rural Kenya. And I think what's exciting about that is a couple things. The experience runs offline. Once you install the model, all the processing happens on the device. And then the other thing is that it's using the built-in camera. So you don't need additional hardware. You don't need to add an additional camera or a switch or an extra microphone or anything. It's just using all of the built-in stuff within the Chromebook. All right, so we can move to the next slide. Oh, I think we missed one. I don't know if we can go back one slide. Okay, yes. So one other update I wanted to share is something called flash notifications. So this setting and assistive technology is designed for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. So if you get a notification and you don't hear that notification, it's easy to miss. So what flash notification does is it changes the background color of your device when you get a notification that comes in. So you can change it to pink or yellow. I think we have a picture of the settings up on the screen. This is also available on Android, by the way. So it's available on both of the Google operating systems. The one note that I'll say about flash notifications that's been kind of exciting is that we actually heard from the National Federation of the Blind, from groups that support people with low vision, that flash notifications is really helping the low vision community as well. Because for people who might be magnifying a section of the screen, they might miss notifications as well. So changing the background of the screen, again, can be very helpful. All right, next slide. Okay, so I have just a couple slides talking about Android XR, and we can go to the next slide. So Android XR is a brand new spatial operating system for next generation headsets and glasses. And we have been working on building accessibility into these products. I can go to the next slide. Okay, so the type of assistive technology that you would expect on Android is going to be available on these types of devices. So things like talkback, magnification, um, color correction, um, color inversion, multimodal gaze, hearing actions, the accessibility menu, the accessibility shortcut, as well as live captions. So these types of things we are working on building in. Um, and this is an area that we'd love to get feedback on as we continue to kind of build out the space. All right, next slide. And I am handing it, I think, back to Alexander.
That's right. Thanks, Mariah. Thanks for the walkthrough. All right, I am excited to dive into some of the accessibility updates on one of my favorite Google apps, which is YouTube. So, Jamie, if you wouldn't mind jumping to the next slide. So, one thing that we recently rolled out is the introduction of speaker turn indicators in captions. So, captions on YouTube now will mark the point when in the audio when a new person begins to speak. And with this update, these changes will now be generated with a double greater than sign. So the when you see, I'm gonna try to see if I can draw it on the screen here. When you see the double greater than sign, that will indicate that a new person is speaking. So this is something that we are pretty excited to have rolled out. And if you could jump to the next slide, please. So very similar to what Ali mentioned in the live caption update with expressive captions. This is something that we're now also rolling out on YouTube in videos in English on all devices. So this is something that's ideally should provide you with a much more immersive content experience on YouTube. So things like intensity of speak will be marked in all caps, and expressions like sighs and gasp, and also noises from the environment will be captured in the captions. So this is something that's available across videos on YouTube that are all uploaded after October 2025. And we continue to roll this out across more videos. Next slide, please. So we've also have some improvements to the auto dubbing experience. So now you can auto dub from one language to another. And this is something that's available, and we've expanded the library of languages to 27 to make auto dubs even more natural. We are currently testing out a lip sync pilot that subtly matches the speaker's lip movements to the translated audio. So it feels very seamless to watch, but it's also something that's going to assist people who lip read to understand the speech better. So I highly recommend trying out the auto dubbing feature on YouTube. And if we could jump to the next slide, now we can jump into the world of Google Maps. The first update that I'd like to share with you is that you can now rely on Gemini to explore the world around you. So simply just tap into the camera in the search bar and hold your phone up to identify. It can be landmarks or restaurants or cafes or shops. And when you see pins, then you can just tap and ask a question similar to what you would ask a friend. It could be like, what's this place and why is it so popular? And because of the powerful combination of the Gemini AI and the capabilities of Google Maps, you'll get a really neat understanding of what's going on in those specific places. Another Google Maps update I just want to call out. It's not necessarily new, but we rolled it out a couple of years ago very broadly, and that is accessible places in Google Maps. So now if you go into a restaurant profile or store profile, you can actually see if there are wheelchair accessible parking, bathrooms, and entrances that are wheelchair accessible, so you can know before you go. This is something that is now this accessibility information is now available for more than 50 million businesses around the world. So definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't seen it already. Next slide, please. So now into the world of workspace accessibility, and workspace that includes products like Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive, and Google Meet. And if you hop to the next slide, the first couple of updates here are for Google Meet, which is our version of Zoom. So if you find raising your physical hand easier than interacting with a non-screen button, you can simply just raise your physical hand, and with gesture detection, we will detect that your hand is up, and you have a little countdown. So if you don't mean to have your hand up, you can just lower your hand. But this is something that is really neat if it's easier for you just to raise your physical hand. All you have to do is just to make sure that the camera is visible, or your hand is visible to the camera, and it's away from your face and your body. And if you're already the active speaker, it won't recognize you raising your hand. But when you're no longer the active speaker, the gesture detection will resume. And if you can jump to the next slide. So Meet also now allow you to hide non-video tiles. And this is something that was requested from the deaf and hard of hearing community, but also for the low vision community, because there's only so much real estate on an online call, and having these empty video tiles take up important real estate is not ideal if you rely on a sign language interpreter, or if you prefer the content to be large. So if you want, you can go into the settings, go into change layout, and then hide tiles without video, and it will simply just remove the tiles from the screen. It will only affect your own view, so not everyone else in the call. But that's a way for you to make sure that content is a little larger. You can also, if you want, pin up to 3 of the tiles, or you can pin a sign language interpreter, the presenter, and the presentation deck, for example, making sure that that is all large and easy to see. And if you go to the next slide, please. So an update that we recently rolled out in Google Meet as well is the ability to customize your caption styles. So that includes both the font size, the font type, the color, the background color. And so you can really just customize the captions to show up in a way that works best for you. If you want to try it out, just go into settings, captions, and customize your captions. You can also just hover in the top right corner of the captions. You can easily go in and change the color, the size, or the font right there. And these settings, they will persist across your meetings, and they can, of course, be changed at any time. Another thing that is cool on a great new update on captions is that you can now scroll your captions for the last 30 minutes. So if you lost something in the past, captions used to disappear right away, but now you can actually just scroll up through the captions. If you have to look away for a minute, if you're distracted, you won't miss out on that important context. And if you go to the next slide, please. One thing we rolled out very recently in Google Meet is speech translation. So this is a neat new feature that provides speech translation in near real time. So it's basically a real-time audio dubbing that allow you to break down language barriers. So this is something that's only available in a limited set of languages right now. And right now we're specifically supporting translations between English and French, German, Spanish, and Portuguese, as well as Italian. But really interesting to try out, and highly recommend testing it out if you're speaking with someone who speaks another language than you. Next slide, please. Thank you. An update to Google Drive. So a couple of years ago, we released an update that I think is really a big win for captions, but also for search. And that is if you upload a video to Google Drive, and there will automatically be a caption track attached to that video. That's of course a big win for captions, but it will actually also a big win for search, because I think we've all been in a situation where someone was giving a presentation about something, but you can't exactly remember the name of the meeting or the name of the file. So you can go into Drive and search, and it will actually search through the captions as well. So it will make it much easier for you to find the files that you're looking for. And we recently rolled out this interactive video transcript in Drive that allows you to interact with the transcript, and you can go in and see when different things were talked about. So pretty neat new feature. And if you go to the next slide. We also, and I highly recommend taking out your phones and scanning the QR code that's on the screen now, because we recently launched a neurodiversity guide to effective work using Workspace with Gemini. And this is a guidebook. It's about 30 pages long that contains tons of tips and tricks that can be very helpful for people who are neurodiverse. And it's a collaboration between the Workspace team at Google and an organization called Understood.org, which is an organization that is providing support to people with learning differences. And this guide is especially designed to help everyone who has thinking or learning differences that are using Google Workspace with Gemini. Highly recommend scanning the QR code and grabbing that PDF. There's so many good tips and tricks in there. And before we open up for questions, we just want to share a couple of resources. If you wouldn't mind jumping to the next slide, and you can just take the next. So if you are an Android user, or if you are interested in switching or just learning more, you can be sure to check out the accessibility site at android.com/accessibility, for all of the latest updates. There's dedicated pages both for vision and for audio and for mobility. Again, android.com/accessibility is a good place to look. Also, for everything Chromebook accessibility, we know that a lot of you work in like also education related stuff. So we have a site for Chromebook accessibility, google.com/chromebook/accessibility. And if you can go to the next slide there. Again, if you want, feel free to take a photo of this site here, of this page. This contains most of the updates, or most of the resources that are really relevant. We have the main Google accessibility site, that is accessibility.google. In there, you'll find links to all the other product pages, but there's also, if you're interested in receiving like the accessibility newsletter that we're sending out every couple of months, you can sign up on accessibility.google. We also have a video series where we release new videos every couple of months, and those are also hosted on that site. So accessibility.google is really your main go-to for staying up to date. I also want to call out our help center. If you do run into issues with any of the Google products, you can go to g.co/help/accessibility, and there's tons of resources available on the help center. If you do prefer to talk to someone, we also have our Disability Support Center, where we have agents that are trained on accessibility and assistive technology. They are available most of the day, both on email, chat, phone. You can call for sign language supported lines, for video calls, really whatever way you prefer. You can go to g.co/disability support to get support if you have any issues or if you want to report any specific bugs. And finally, make sure to follow us on Google Access on X or Twitter, and please do sign up for the newsletter and check out the video series. We have the links on this side, but everything can be found on accessibility.google as well. With that, we are ready to answer some questions if you have any. And thanks so much, Jamie and Janine for having us. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, I love all this information. I'm an Android phone user myself and love it. Looks like there's some questions. Allie, you've been doing such a great job already. Already answering some of them. You pasted, oh, you've got the information on the AirPods in there.
Yeah, I'm
Great.
just revising that. The AirPods, they're not designed to work with Android phones as a hearing aid, but it does seem like if you set the AirPods up as a hearing aid with an iOS device first, they can continue to function as a hearing aid, but you just can't access that setting from the Android device. So you just have to configure it with an iPhone first.
Very interesting.
I wish all of the technology and Bluetooth played well together, but there are some workarounds.
Which of the mentioned settings on Android phones can be used without Wi-Fi or cell service? That
Like of all of the features we talked about today.
it did not specify. So maybe yes, let's go with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that we presented a lot of different features today. And the answer to that varies. Core accessibility features like magnification or talkback for blind users, voice access for mobility users, anything that is like a key way for a user with that disability to interact with the device. Those are all available offline, like on airplane mode, no connectivity. Some of those features might have more advanced features, like TalkBack can do like AI image descriptions or other things, and some of that stuff requires internet. And then there's things within the captioning space. A lot of those language features are translate, transcribe. Only certain languages are available without Wi-Fi. And then a lot of the things Daniel was showing, like extended dark mode, that works everywhere. There's no internet needed to do that. Those display customizations or outline text. So it does vary, but I'd recommend if you're wondering, if you look up the specific feature, the Google and Android support articles should tell you like which features are offline and which languages are available offline.
Okay.
And
Nice.
maybe I would just add one note to that, which is some of the assistive technology have to be installed from the Google Play Store. So take Live Transcribe, for example. Well, you're going to need internet or mobile connectivity to do the initial download, but then you can run it offline. So there are a few where you need to install them from the Play Store.
Got it. Wonderful. Josh is asking, are there any plans to add any type of built-in accessibility checker to Google Workspace? Example, docs, slides, sheets to help school systems working towards WCAG compliance. I am very familiar with Grackle, but hoping that Google is working towards something native.
I can take that one. Unfortunately, we can't talk too much about what things that are coming or then that are not coming. But I will say that this is feedback that has been coming up rather consistently, and something that we will make sure to share with the workspace team. Again, unfortunately, we can't share too much about what's coming or what's not coming, but duly noted, Josh. Thanks for calling it out.
Let's see. I tried to use the amplifier app this is from Anna. I tried to use the sound amplifier app just a few days ago. Had a lot of static sound and did not work well for me. Will there be any update on that app?
So this one, there are a few different settings in the sound amplifier app to change like what the source is, what the sound is, what some of that noise reduction is. I would say, unfortunately, some of this does come down to your device because it relies on your device's hardware and the microphones there. That's why what I think Olivia mentioned in the chat, asking about a table mic, a really precise, specific piece of hardware like a table mic for meetings is still going to be higher quality because it's like designed to focus on voices and has all of this other sound filtering and processing. So yeah, I would say try some of those different settings, and I'll also take this feedback back to the team to see if we can learn anything else about some of that noise reduction.
Okay, thanks. Makai is asking, hopefully I'm saying your name right. Are there any resources for people who have speech limitations or differences?
We have a I'm just gonna check what the status of it, but I would highly recommend checking out Project Relate, which is a project that has been running for a while. I'm not exactly sure what the status is of it right now, but this is a service to help people with speak with non-standard speech, basically creating custom models for folks, so you can interact with voice. I need to check on the status of it though, but check out Project Relate if you can type that into Google.
Yeah, I just shared a link to the Google research site for Project Relate that people can refer to.
Thanks, Alan.
Great. Okay. Wonderful.
One other app just for speech that worth calling out, I think, is it's for folks with no speech or mobility, is called Look to Speak. It's available on Android. It allows you to, it's a communication tool basically that allows you to control your dip or speak just using eye gaze. So looking at the phone, looking left, right, and up and down, or you can also tap on the screen. So Look to Speak is an app that is also worth checking out.
Alexander, are you saying look to speak?
Look to Speak.
Okay, great. Sorry. That sounds wonderful. It's been a while since I've been in the field. Are the Android blocks still a thing? Are they still being developed and used? Or the
Action blocks?
action block. Sorry, yes, Android action block. Sorry, it's been a while.
No, I don't know if anyone else knows.
I like them because you could use the board makers. It was like built right in the board maker symbols right in there, and you could easily make a communication messages right on the fly. I love that.
Excuse me.
Rachel is saying she still uses them, so yay.
But I know that they're definitely still supported. I'm not on that team, so we're not. And again, we can't really share too much about what's happening, but they definitely still exist, and that's great that you're getting usage out of them.
Wonderful. Yeah, we use them to for people even to just have automated texts too, to send without too much work. So very nice.
Yeah, I saw a question from Rain Sims about for AI integrated into the camera app for accessibility, how is privacy handled? is the camera view ever stored by Google or another third party in order to use that functionality? This is probably Daniel about like the pixel magnifier or some of those other camera navigation. I'm not sure if you know, or Mariah, if either of you know how the camera content is used.
I think in general, all Google products will tell you somewhere in the specific like app how they're using any data that you share with them. By default, most products are going to be either like running completely offline, or if they do use a cloud model, they use it just for that instant processing and then they delete it. Any like storage for training or something would generally only be like very explicit opt-in because of course we know how sensitive that stuff can be.
Okay. See if there's any more questions. Oh, somebody just pasted something. Oh, thank you. Okay. Any more questions?
These slides are QR codes. Are they shared with the presenters? I saw a few questions in the chat asking how people can access. I don't know what the
Yeah, if we're allowed to share the slides, we will do a follow-up email to everyone with a link to the recording and the slides. If and we'll try to put somebody has to put the contents of the chat. We'll try to paste those links and other things in the chat. Okay. Anything else? Any other lots of thanks. Okay. Any last words, Google team? Team Google.
Just a big thanks, Janine, Jamie, for inviting us in, and yeah, thanks for the collaboration over the last couple of years with devices and everything. So just, yeah, thank you for organizing. Thanks for having us. And sorry for the technical issues at the beginning. Our corporate computers are not too happy with Zoom, so we had to do some work on it. But that is
There's always something, Alexander.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Feel free to connect, reach out, and again, just plugging the accessibility.google site if you want to stay up to date. We know that staying up to date can be tough, but that site is really your central source for all of the newer things that are coming out. What we covered today was just a glimpse into some of the things that we are working on, but these things happen constantly. So there's newsletters, there's videos in there. Those are the easiest ways to stay up to date on all of the exciting new things that are coming. And there's a big year ahead of us, so I would highly recommend to subscribe and check out the resources. So yeah, so so easily can stay up to date.
Wonderful. Ali, Mariah, Daniel, any?
Just thank you everyone so much for joining and for engaging in the discussion. And we love getting questions and feedback from users. It really does help us figure out, what to prioritize and what type of user problems to solve. So yeah, just keep the feedback coming.
Yes, +1 to the feedback. We definitely use the feedback, we bring it back, we share it with our leadership, and it also really helps us shape kind of what are the next top things that we need to work on. We kind of collect them all and talk to the team about it. So yes, if you try out anything new that you heard about today, and if you have any feedback for us, please let us know. Thank you.
Mindy from your team posted that, oh shoot, no, I lost it. Oh, accessibility.google is the site to go to. And Daniel or whomever, have you had anything else? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I loved all this information, especially as an Android phone user, and actually most of my family's on Android. And so thank you, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.